Welcome to the 27th ranked team in these 2021 NBA Power Rankings 2021 NBA roster deep dive for the upcoming season with the Detroit Pistons. Now, this team has a lot of potential. Of course, they're the team that won the rights to have the #1 overall pick, Cade Cunningham.
With the first pick, the Detroit Pistons select Cade Cunningham.
They are the team that won the lottery. They are the team that is looking to take the next step to returning to NBA glory, winning the NBA championship, something they haven't done since 2004. And with that, this team has been in, a bit of a rough place. They traded for Blake Griffin because back when he was on the Clippers, people used to think he was a good NBA player. They were in a quote-unquote win-now mode, signing Derrick Rose, signing Andre Drummond to a mega deal. They had a whole bunch of quote-unquote talent that just didn't seem to be able to take the next step together, gel, progress, and become a playoff caliber team that's going to be able to advance. So they blew that all up over the season, bought out Blake Griffin, traded away Andre Drummond, traded away Derrick Rose, and essentially played all their young guys and tanked to a 20-52 record last season, 15th in the Eastern Conference, and ended the season in the 26th spot in the 2021-2020 NBA Power Rankings. And you know what? I'm okay with that because I'm a big proponent of the tanking for the #1 overall pick kind of mentality. If you have a plan and go forward with it, I have no problems with that. I have no problems with the process that occurred in Philadelphia, even though that hasn't resulted in a title. They had 5 years of great picks. They picked up Joel Embiid. They had the chance to draft #1 overall Markelle Fultz. And of course, they have the limitless wonder that is Ben Simmons. And the Pistons seem to be on a right path. They're not trying to fire every single coach every single year. They're not trying to boot out executives. It seems like they have a plan in place run by their front office. So, talking about this offseason, honestly, it's not very impressive, if you will. They did, of course, get Cade Cunningham, which is a franchise-changing player. No problem with that, but that did kind of come with winning the #1 overall pick. They signed Kelly Olynyk to a 3-year, $37 million contract, and while that's not the most expensive, about a little over $12 million a year, it's for Kelly Olynyk, and I don't know how he just keeps getting these contracts. But teams keep lining up to sign him and then trade him away 1.5 seasons later. I don't know why they keep doing it, but Pistons are next in line. They did pick up Trey Lyles, which was going to bring a whole wrinkle into the Sekou Doumbouya dilemma. And of course, they lost Dennis Smith Jr., not really a big loss. Davidas Servidas, really weird what's going on with him. And of course, Mason Plumlee, the 7-foot center himself. Nikola Jokic Light, the GOAT center. They did get rid of him. I think he's on Charlotte now. Davidas Servidas is a really interesting spot. I don't know what the hell's going on with him. They waived him, essentially gave him $1.5 million to fuck off, never see their team again. So basically, it was bizarre. They traded 3 future seconds for him to draft him in the second round 2 years ago, then stashed him away for a year, then brought him in last season, but he didn't play a whole lot. He wasn't all that impressive, but he also played like 2 minutes a night. So it's kind of hard to see if the talent is there, is it not? And then they waived him, but then they asked him to play on their summer league this year. It was like, I saw one article was saying this is like breaking up with your girlfriend and then still taking her to prom. It didn't make any sense. I have no idea why they're playing with this Davidas Servidas guy so much. Maybe he's going to get signed somewhere that can actually grow and develop him, unlike what was going on in the Pistons. Like I've been saying with a lot of these teams, the Pistons are another one that has too many players, too much talent, and there's just not enough positions on the court. There's only 5 starters. But anyway, let's dive into it. Let's talk about this point guard squad. And I have Cade Killian essentially playing the point guard and shooting guard position simultaneously. So you're going to see on this screen and the next screen as well. It's going to be a fluid situation. So I have them listed as both. I think Cade is eventually going to play the LeBron point forward role, the guy who's listed at small forward, but plays basically any position that's needed. Most of the time, the minutes are going to be primary ball handler, small forward in the roster. But you never know how these things are going to break out. Cade Cunningham is the ultimate positionless NBA player. He's like 6'8", and he even at OK State, he would play point center for their team. He'd be the tallest guy. He plays center on defense and then bring up the court on offense and initiate. So, going to be a fluid situation. It's interesting to see how that's going to play out. Killian Hayes is a true point guard who played horribly last year, as you can see by the 5.3 PER and the negative win shares. He just wasn't a very impressive rookie, but he had a lot to deal with. Of course, COVID was horrible on these young guys. He struggled with a hip injury as well, which is very bad for young players. You want to make sure they get healthy because you remember what happened to the remains of Isaiah Thomas on the Celtics when he had his hip injury. Lastly, playing a true point guard, the not like a De'Aaron Fox, a young Derrick Rose where you slash and you create and you pass out of the slashes. He plays the actual point guard position where he runs the offense, passes it to the open man. He's more of a Chris Paul than a Russell Westbrook when he's on the court. So I really liked Killian's passes sometimes, but then he would miss a wide open player. He'd miss wide open passes. He'd miss wide open shots. There's just a lot to be seen, but he's only 19, I think, maybe 20. He's only played 1 year so far, last year being his rookie year. And I don't want to just call him a bust after one season. The thing about NBA rookies is it takes 4 to 5 years just to see how good they're going to be. And players in the NBA don't reach their peak until they're about 28, 29. So I hate saying, oh man, I'm out on Killian Hayes. I don't like him doing this. I don't like him doing that. I don't like the narrative that Pelicans fans have given Lonzo Ball. I wish that we would give these young players more time to progress, more time to understand the game and adapt and overcome. So yeah, Killian Hayes struggled. They started to run this fun Saban Lee Killian Hayes backcourt at the end of the season. I think that was a great experience for Killian, just to have 2 point guards on the court at the same time. He could play a little off ball while still maintaining that point guard role. He did shoot some catch and shoot threes, showed a little bit of range, although he did shoot that horrible, look at that, 27.8% from the 3-point line. Again, expecting that only to go up. And of course, now is Cade Cunningham. He's an interesting case. I wasn't on team Cade Cunningham. I was actually on team Jalen Green when they were going through the process. You can watch through any of my old videos. I say, if the Pistons believe in Killian Hayes, take Jalen Green. He's an unbelievable talent. He's very young. He's very raw, and he's going to need a little more development than Cade Cunningham. Cade is like, come out of the box. He's going to be a good player day one. Jalen Green has the higher ceiling, lower floor, where Cade Cunningham's floor is probably all-star already. He played unbelievable against the college kids at Oklahoma State. As you can see by his stat line, 20 points, 6 rebounds, 3 assists, 40% from the 3-point line, 59% true shooting at 21.6 PER. The dude was legit. I'm not saying he's a bust by any stretch of the imagination. I had him going number 2 overall or tied for number 1 overall. So, of course, he's a great player. I was just curious if the Pistons believe in Killian Hayes in their long-term future. And at this point, because of his poor rookie year, it's still yet to be decided. Which brings us to their backcourt. Corey Joseph is there at point guard 3. They signed him to a 2-year, $10 million deal. Not a big fan of him getting $10 million guaranteed, no team option at the end of that. I mean, he's fine. He's Corey Joseph. He might, maybe he'll be able to bring some leadership, teach these young kids how to play the game, because the Pistons have a very, very young roster. So maybe he'll come in and say, this is how you tie your shoes every night. This is how you handle the media. Maybe he'll be able to provide that to these young players. Saban Lee here as well. Saban Lee is a legit slasher. I enjoyed watching him come off the bench. He has a lot of work to do. His three-pointer just isn't quite good enough at 34.8%, but he plays valiantly. I'm looking to see in this upcoming season, is he going to be more of a point guard or a short shooting guard? Because we have too many of the second in the NBA, not enough point guards. One fucking hilarious thing, though, about Saban Lee is that he learned how to shoot his free throws from Blake Griffin, where, you do your routine, dribble, then you get the ball ready to shoot, put your arms up, and then pause at the top, and then shoot with your wrist. I don't know why Blake Griffin thought that was the best way to do a three-point and free throw shooting motion, but he taught it to Saban Lee in his time in Detroit, and I thought that was just a funny tidbit. Anyway, going on, that's going to be the 20th ranked point guard class. It's a little tough. Is Cade Cunningham the point guard? Is Killian Hayes the point guard? At this point, I'm just kind of meshing them into one. That's why they're a top 20 point guard tandem, just because I believe in Cade Cunningham's floor. I think he's going to bring a lot of leadership and skill to the position that they've been lacking. Hopefully, Cade and Killian Hayes are going to develop nicely alongside each other and make this a lethal backcourt. Onto their wing positions, I have, again, as I said, the Cade Killian shoot guarding breaking, Sadiq Bey, and Jeremy Grant. Now, Sadiq was an interesting case. He showed he can shoot from 3, shot 38%, 40%, around 40%, I think 39% in the second half of the season. He can shoot the 3 ball, period. Now we need to see, can he continue to grow his game? He has the physique to be a good defender. He has the physique to take people off the dribble. Now, is he going to be able to do that, or is he just going to be a spot-up shooter for the rest of his career? He's a young guy. He's only 22 years old. He's a little old for a second-year player compared to most of these freshmen that come out, but that said, he's still a young guy. Hopefully, he can continue to grow and develop this game, and that's going to be essentially the key for the Detroit Pistons. Who can grow, who can continue to develop, who can become an all-star caliber player on this team to go alongside and become running mates with Cade Cunningham. And Jeremy Grant is, he's the outlier of this team. He was the ultimate success story. He came over from the Nuggets as a role player and said, I want to be the primary option on this team. And you know what? He kind of was. He put up 22 points a game, 4 rebounds, 3 assists, shot 35% from the free throw line. And while that's a little low, he's a legit 40% three-point shooter. Put up a 16.9 PER, which was basically the best on the Pistons. And it was remarkable to see this guy who everybody, including myself, was like, oh yeah, Jeremy Grant, he's good off the bench. And he became a primary option. Now, is he going to be the primary option on a championship team? Probably not. But if he continues to develop, he's a young guy himself at only 27 years old. He can bring these young guys along with him. I think the future is bright in Detroit. The main question is, how is his dynamic going to go alongside Cade Cunningham? He was, of course, the primary option alongside, Blake Griffin and Derrick Rose when the season started, and then they got rid of him and said they basically cleared the decks for all the young players, except they kept Jeremy Grant. Now, Sadiq Bey has stepped up. He showed that he can be a legit scorer. Cade Cunningham is coming in, #1 overall pick. He's going to demand his touches. So Jeremy Grant at the end of the season might be down to third option on this team. And I don't know. We're going to need to see how the season plays out. But maybe he might be the primary 6-man off the bench, which is, unlikely given his contract. And he's probably has a desire to lead a franchise, even if it's into the ground. So who knows how that's going to be. But maybe they're going to trade him away for some good pieces since they are so young. Maybe he's going to mesh perfectly with Cade Cunningham. They're going to be a playoff caliber team. I don't know, but seeing Jeremy Grant grow has been fun to watch. So proud of this kid coming up, being a role player, being a second-round pick, and all of a sudden he's the star, the primary, the alpha on an NBA team. There's only 30 of those, and he's one of them. That being said, none of their rankings are particularly high. The Cade Killian shooting guard rank is a little lower just because, A, they're both primary ball handlers, so none of them really play the Jalen Green kind of off-ball role. None of them are going to give you a 30 consistently. Sadiq Bey is 20th right now along the likes of a Devin Vassell or a Josh Okogie, Danny Green, Andrew Wiggins. He just needs to continue to grow and develop and prove that he's more than a three-point shooter. I hope that he does. I hope he doesn't just stop his development at, I'm going to shoot 40% from 3 and spot up in the corner and play a little defense. I think he has the potential to be much more. And Jeremy Grant at this point is a league average 15th power forward. He got his own team. He showed he can put up 20 a night. Now can he continue to push this team into the playoffs? That's going to be fun to watch. As for the center position, they have Isaiah Stewart, and Isaiah Stewart was probably their best rookie this season. So while the center ranking is a little low at 25th, that's just because Isaiah Stewart is so raw. He's an impact player. I really like him. But the problem is he's short. He's one of those 6'8 centers that got drafted last year. There was him, Xavier Tillman, Onyeka Okongwu, Precious Achua, and I think one more. But it was just a class full of high-quality, undersized centers. And while they can bring that energy and they can bring that strength and physicality that Isaiah Stewart especially brings, they're still going to have trouble at the end of the day putting up with a 7-foot big man. I know Isaiah Stewart had major issues going against a guy like Cat, going against Joel Embiid. He just continued to get into foul trouble, and it was just an issue with him being too physical and him being undersized, having to make up for that with fouls. He's a great defender, an aggressive rebounder. His only limitations are his height and his shooting to some extent. He did shoot 33.3% from the three-point line, but he shot 0.9 threes a game. He basically shot 1 3 a game and made 1/3 of those. It's not a very reliable three-point shot. Maybe he's going to continue to develop that, but again, like I said, the key word to the Detroit Pistons is growth and development. That said, he was a hell of a rookie last year. He was so much energy for them, and he was probably the best of those Okongwu, Xavier Tillman centers. Here in his starting role for the Pistons, my only worry is what you saw last year is as good as he's going to get. And of course, he's going to learn a few moves here and there, but he's not going to grow any taller. He's not going to grow any longer. And maybe he can grow a three-point shot, but that would mean he's going to move down to the power forward position. I don't know. I think this might be where Isaiah Stewart caps out. They did sign Kelly Olynyk, like I mentioned, to that gross $13-12 million a year contract. He's fine, he'll give you the three-pointer, 34%. He puts up some points, 13.5 last year with the Rockets. Gives you rebounds, gives you some assists. He's just not a very flashy player. He's essentially a stretch 4 in today's game, which moves him to the center position. I just can't say anything about him. Jahlil Okafor is coming back for another year as well. He's just a very nice big body that they can bring in off the bench. He's strong. I think he's a hair under 7 foot, but he has the strength to put up with those bigger guys like Joel Embiid. He's not going to back down from anything, and he still has some semblance of a post game as well. Giving them the 25th ranking. Like I said, I like Isaiah Stewart. I'm sure he can be a top 20 center easily by midseason this upcoming year. As for their bench, last year they were 7th. Now, part of that is because they just got rid of everybody who was a starter and said, hey guys, you handle all the work. And part of that is they have a pretty decent bench for themselves. They have Hamidou Diallo, Hami, who I was a little surprised didn't get signed away this offseason. I think he took his qualifying offer, $5 million a year. He is not a ball-dominant shooting guard, but a shooting guard, when he catches the ball, he's going to either shoot it or he's going to drive hard and either make a layup or kick it out. He never really initiates. He won't pass the ball around that much. He's just a hyper-aggressive slasher. That said, I thought he showed some potential. He kind of reminds me of Jeremy Grant playing on the Thunder, growing his game, late-round pick, and then comes over to the Pistons and basically is the alpha on the bench unit. So it's going to be fun to see him, like I said, grow and develop for this Pistons squad. Frank Jackson, also on the bench, came back. I wanted to dislike him. I really did, but he's a fine shooter. He's basically Colin Sexton light. He's super undersized at like 6 foot, 6'1", can shoot the ball well, can slash, has a nice floater game, and he's just so undersized that he's always a mismatch on defense. Sekou Doumbouya is still here, and they have a major dilemma with him. The entire Pistons nation has been waiting patiently for him to step up, go to that next level, become that starter, become that high caliber player for their squad, and he just never has done it. He had to deal with COVID. He had to deal with Blake Griffin coming in and playing his position. Now he had to deal with Jeremy Grant coming in and taking his positions. And now they brought in Trey Lyles and Kelly Olynyk to take his position. So it feels like on one hand, he's never had the chance to develop, but on the other hand, he also hasn't taken that next step himself. So just because Blake Griffin is here doesn't mean you don't work your ass off in the gym every single day to get better and better, and he hasn't taken that step. I mean, his points per game has been 6 and 5 for the last 2 seasons. He's been putting up under 7 PER, so you're just kind of waiting for him to show the improvement that we've been expecting. This is going to be a little bit like Mo Bamba is for the Magic, a not quite, but prove it year. Are you going to be worth re-signing when your rookie contract is up, or are they just going to let you go to another team and hopefully you can continue to progress with them? We don't want any business with you anymore. So it's going to be interesting to see what Sekou does. His window to prove himself on the Pistons is closing. They did bring in Trey Lyles from the Spurs, like I said. Isaiah Livers in the draft. Luka Garza came in. He played well in the G League. Luka Garza is a fun player, but he's not an NBA caliber player. He's able to put up a little offense. He just suffers from that Nikola Jokic problem where his feet are way too slow to play any semblance of defense. So anytime he's going to get involved in the pick and roll, anytime he has a defender out on the perimeter, he's dead to rights. Someone's going to run by him, get an easy layup, get him fouled. He does play offense very nice, very well. He can shoot the 3. He can create in the post. He's a fun player to watch. You love to root for him, but he's not going to be an NBA player for very long because of his horrible lateral quickness. Rodney McGruder, they re-signed. You know, he's a fine player, fine depth. Josh Jackson is still here, and man, what a fall for him. He was originally pegged to be a top 3 player in that Lonzo Ball, Markelle Fultz, Jason Tatum draft. He said, fuck your interview to Boston. They decided to take Jason Tatum instead and just never looked back, and Josh Jackson has been fighting for minutes ever since. A little bit like Sekou, he just strikes you as a player who has all the talent in the world, but doesn't have the work ethic of a Kobe, of a Julius Randle, someone who's going to be found in the gym 24/7, someone who's going to be there at 3 a.m. while everybody else is sleeping. He's just not quite that guy. And lastly, I put this, almost as a joke, but it is true. Blake Griffin's contract, $30 million, is still on the Detroit Pistons books for this upcoming season. Part of why this offseason hasn't been all that impressive is because they're still paying Blake Griffin. Yikes, I know, but at this point, it's almost worth it to begin that rebuilding process instead of trying to hash it out one more year with Blake. Say, oh, Blake, we'll make a playoff push this season and we'll get to the 7th seed. Woo! So I have no problems with this being the final year paying off Blake Griffin's contract. Start the rebuild. Start seeing what you have with Cade Cunningham and all these great young players. Which brings us to the coaching culture rank. I have them at 7th. I believe in Dwayne Casey. He won Coach of the Year for a reason. He's going to do a great job at developing the talent. He is the Mark Jackson to Steve Kerr. He literally was the Dwayne Casey to Nick Nurse. Now, is he the guy to bring along a bunch of young guys and make them blossom grow on your team? Or is he just a good coach overall? That's yet to be seen. I hope that he's going to be able to bring this team along, push them into playoffs, make them competitive. And then if need be, they can go find a Steve Kerr, Greg Popovich, or whatever they need to do to get over the hill. Right now, the Detroit Pistons are just fighting for a spot in the playoffs. Their GM, Troy Weaver, he's had a few questionable things, like how he's handled the Davida Cerritos situation, but overall, he's still early into this process. The thing about the NBA is players don't progress for 5 years, so it's going to be a while before we really can say, oh, Troy Weaver is good, or oh, Troy Weaver is bad. I like what he's done, completely blowing the team up and saying, all right, we're going to start rebuilding. They got Jeremy Grant on a surprisingly, now looking backwards, good contract, and they got a whole bunch of young guys. Excited to see that. The owner is Tom Gores. He doesn't destroy anything. He's no Jerry Jones. And of course, the owner's right-hand man, the real GM, is Ed Stefanski. Once again, looking to see what they do. Also, I didn't touch about this on the bench, but they did draft Balsa Koprivica with their other second-round pick. He's going to be a draft and stash player. You'll see him next season. He re-signed in Serbia or somewhere. I don't think he was very good. I had a undrafted grade on him. He just wasn't very talented at FSU in his sophomore season. But he's a big 7-foot center. Maybe he's going to come over next season and, roast the G League. Yet to be seen. Which brings us to their season projections. Yet another team that's just in rebuild mode, tanking. They're not going to win now, but they do have a bright future since they won that #1 overall pick. Everybody and their fucking mother is saying Cade Cunningham is going to be the best player ever. Cade Cunningham is the real deal. Cade Cunningham is going to blow your fucking mind. And while I'm not going to go that far, he's a good player, and he's going to definitely raise the floor of this team. Hopefully bring along some of those young guys as well who have showed flashes, who have showed potential to be very good players. Their championship odds are fucking impossible. Rookies are going to take a long time to develop. I don't expect the Pistons to be good for another 2 or 3 years, but the future is bright for Detroit, and that's why they are the 27th seed right now in my 2020 NBA Power Rankings. They have a great coaching culture. Now they have a legit core led by Cade Cunningham and Jeremy Grant, and I think the future is going to be very bright for Detroit. Looking forward to see what they do in the following year. Anyway, let me know what you think, what you agree with, what you disagree with, and I'll catch you in the next one to unveil the 26th team in the Power Rankings.